Okay. So we're at the last class of the session. So my thanks to any and everybody who has come to one or some or all of these sessions. I just really appreciate that people have asked questions, everybody who's provided feedback in the survey that comes after the class. I do read all of the surveys that I get, and I've tried to compile useful information to make this class more useful next time it's offered. And, there's good feedback for other sessions that the education team does. So thanks very much for your feedback on that. And also, I just wanted to thank Milan for being here for all of these sessions and taking time out of his very busy schedule, answering your support tickets to help me field the chat questions and to share his knowledge. So thank you so much, everybody who's attended in Milan. And this is our last session. So let's get started. So today we're talking about Primo Analytics. So we're going to just take a look at what Primo Analytics is, taking a look at the analytics interface, navigating around it. So if you're familiar with Alma Analytics, it's going to be very similar. It's sort of an introductory session to analytics, what you can do with dashboards and reports that come out of the box. And hopefully we'll show that you can do a lot of powerful things without needing to put in a ton of work. And then, of course, you can get very, customized and very granular in your reporting as well, to, show what you want to show at your institution. We'll take a look at creating our own analysis and then also scheduling, creating those like syndicated reports that you can send to your staff or bring over as widgets, whatever is useful, so you can get those reports out of analytics and into Alma to make them useful. Um, I will say that, again, this is a pretty introductory look at Primo Analytics, and I would also like to say, I'm going to put a link in the chat here. So this is just a link to the education webinars that you likely already are familiar with, but last fall, starting in sort of October, um, my colleague Connie Braun did a whole session on analytics, and it's focused on Alma Analytics, but it's another, I think it was, close to 10 or 12 sessions as well that went really deep into analytics and creating more complex reports. And I do not claim in any way to have that kind of skill with analytics. It's not, particularly my favorite part of Alma Primo, but if you are looking to create something more complex, I would definitely take a look at those. Again, they're not focused specifically on Primo Analytics, but the concepts are the same across both of them. So what is Primo Analytics? What are Primo Analytics? Uh, this is a separate interface. It's based on the Oracle Analytics server. So when you go into analytics, you're actually leaving Alma Primo and you're going into an Oracle software, basically, that's pulling your data. Your data is in there, and you can use this interface to create reports, create graphical representations of things, create dashboards, all kinds of reporting. It basically is meant to, do all of the reporting in Alma Primo, sort of build your SQL queries for you, and that kind of thing. And, again, you can get really granular with it. And if you are good at analytics, you can do a lot of really interesting reporting. So there's a lot to build on, but this is sort of the building blocks of that. To get into analytics, you need to have the analytics administrator and designs analytics roles. Uh, Actually, to get into the interface itself, you need the designs analytics role. This is the one that will just allow you to open the interface, and it's the same it will get you into Alma and Primo Analytics, so, kind of two for one. There's not a discrete difference between them that you can assign different roles. And then the analytics administrator role allows you to do the admin stuff in Alma, like manage your objects, create the reporting within Alma. So maybe you need one, maybe you need both of those roles. So taking a look at analytics, scroll up in my notes here. Okay. So to get into analytics, we're in the regular menu, not in config. And my analytics bar is hid under this more options ellipses here. But you would click into analytics. And then I have my designs analytics, data visualization, which Connie goes into in her presentations as well, design analytics, and then in parentheses, Primo, and then data visualization for Primo. And then we'll also take a look at the analytics objects list. So this is how you get into, if you click into the design, either one of these design options, that's actually opening the interface. Before we get in there, I'm sure you're aware, but just pointing out, you have this data available as of and data updated as of down here. And if you hover over them, they will tell you what they mean. But basically, the data updated as of is when the extract from your Alma environment, your Primo environment started. Alma, well, Alma and Primo analytics are always one day behind. So you'll see that the update started yesterday night, and it finished sometime early this morning. Looks like it took about 5 hours to complete. And that is the process of pulling the data out of your environment, transforming the data into the ways it needs to be transformed in order to be put into analytics, and then actually like committed into the analytics environment so that you can query it. So you were able to query the new data as of this time, the second time. This is data available as of. So if you happen to be, an early riser and you were in Primo Analytics at this time, you would be seeing new data. So I'm going to go now into Design Analytics Primo, and you see it opens a new tab, and we are in the analytics environment, which as we see is different, of course, than where we were before. It's not an Ex Libris product, but it does have your data in there. By default, unless you've made some changes, you're likely coming in to the catalog. So we see that this is the one that's bolded. That's where we are navigation-wise in analytics. And the format, if you're familiar with Alma Analytics, should be very familiar. You have two sets of folders here. You have My Folders, and I'm actually selected into it, and we see that we have no data. If I pull the little arrow down, you see that nothing is below it. So I don't have anything currently in My Folders, but this is my personal area, and we see also in our location up here, the sort of file browse area, we're also in My Folders. It's personal to me. I can create my own reporting and nobody else can see it at my institution. It might be a good place to work on reports that are sort of in process. And then generally speaking, I think most people end up sharing them in their institution folder so that others in their institution can use them. But this whole file structure, you can create, folders, you can create, subfolders, however you want to organize your own space, you have that available and you can save your own reporting and dashboards in there. You also have your shared folders. Now, caveat about this environment, both about what you see here and what you'll see in the reports, is that I'm using a different environment than I usually do for demo because the environment that I usually use is a sandbox, and we know that sandboxes don't have analytics. So this is a training environment that's a production environment, so it does have analytics. It's relatively new. So when we go into the reports, we'll see that there's not a ton of activity that's happened. I did ask my colleagues to like click around in Primo in the past couple of days, so we have some data points to show, but there's just not a ton of data. This is a relatively new environment. Also, caveat, there is an issue with provisioning here. You should see in your shared folders when you open up Primo V, you should see a folder that represents your institution. So you have this components folder, you have this Primo folder. This Primo folder is all of your out-of-the-box reporting. So everybody has this Primo folder with all of the, prepackaged sort of reports that exist. And then everybody should also have the Primo community folder where our community members can share reports and dashboards. And I'll just open this while we're in here. So let's look at reports. And you see that, so I mean, it's small. Sorry, it's small. But you can sort of navigate by pulling the arrows down. You can also navigate by clicking into the folder and then it expands here in the right pane. whatever is more useful in terms of, how you want to expand. But looking at our reports, so our community members can create their own folder. It's the same thing with Alma Analytics. And then if you look inside their folder, they can share, well, maybe there's nothing in here. They can share reports that they might think might be useful to others. And you can always copy these. So you can go into more and you can copy any report. You can copy any dashboard that anybody has created. If you say, wow, this is a really great report, I want to use this, at my institution, make some edits to it. You can copy it, paste it into your institution folder, paste it into your personal folder, and then you can work with that report that somebody else has shared and, recommended. I always don't like to reinvent the wheel if I don't have to. If you're looking for something in particular, you can always search here. There's a search function and you can search in different folders and you can search for maybe a keyword, maybe an industry specific report or something that you need to run. You can see how others have structured it and then sort of, use their example and go from there. Um, so yeah, that's that. And again, you should have your institution folder here. And that's the folder that will allow you to pull objects into Alma also. So anything you save in your institution folder, you can't uncover for like a widget or a shared report because it's personal to you. So it wouldn't allow you to share that. So anything that you wanted to share into Alma as well would need to be saved in your institution folder. So that's the catalog, which is where a lot of the activity would happen, but you have some other options in the top nav bar. You have home, which allows you to create a new analysis, create a new dashboard. It will show you where you were, and this is like sticky, so this will show me where I was last time my user was in analytics, which can be useful. Others, and then most popular should populate at your institution. We don't use this environment very much, so some of this stuff might not be populated. We saw catalog. You can also manage your favorites if you want to get to places quickly and decide what you might work on often when you're in here. Your dashboards drop down will show you dashboards that are created. So I have my dashboard, so that's like for me, for my personal use. And then again, you have your Primo community, and then you should have your institution folder as well. And it's going to show you like these are two out of the box dashboards that we'll take a look at, and then dashboards coming from the community folder as well. And you can minimize them if it's unwieldy. You can use a create bar to create a new analysis, so a new report, a new dashboard, etc. So starting something new. And then you can use open to browse in your file structure for something you might have created before. And then finally, I just want to show you can look at your account. Lots of this stuff probably, maybe you do need to change like your user interface language. You could do that here, your time zone, things like that. Currency, if you needed to change that. But the thing that you might change is the starting page. So you have your home page. Maybe you want to start on your home page rather than the catalog, your dashboard, whatever. That should open up when you open up analytics. So maybe you want to choose something different there. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the dashboards. So in terms of what you have out of the box, you have this example dashboard and a trends dashboard. And we'll take a close look at the trends, well, at the example dashboard in a second, but I'll just open up the trends one to show you. So these are things that are out of the box. So you'll have them as soon as you log in. You can just click into the trends dashboard and you see it has two different pages. You have usage and popular searches, and it will populate with a chart and then with data. And you can see a lot of these are going to sort of be replicated in the example dashboard, but I just wanted to show you that you have this trends as well that also pulls in this popular searches chart, graph, whatever. But I do want to take a closer look at the example dashboard, which is a little bit more, has a little bit more data in it. So the example dashboard has, as you see, a bunch of different pages. So you have actions, devices, etc. Your popular searches is also in the examples dashboard. And then you see that there are multiple reports within each page. So obviously there's multiple reports in here. We'll take a look at each one. Um, this is obviously wrong in this environment, but this should pull in your data updated as of. It's pulling in this parameter as well. If you needed to have a quick refresher of, how recent the data is, maybe you're trying to see if something that happened yesterday or overnight is being caught. You can take a look up here. It's being pulled in. Up here, you have a sort of top level prompt. So we're looking right now at total actions that your user might take. I can change it to sessions, or I could change it to signed in, so signed in users. And when I make a change here, it's going to affect all of the graphs below it. So this prompt is going to affect everything, and everything below will have changed. I'm going to keep it on actions for now. And so this first chart here, for example, search actions, likely, again, you have many more search actions probably in your institution. But some of these things, obviously, that we'll see are dependent on your configuration. Like, do you have database search configured and set up? Do you have newspaper search configured and set up? That's obviously going to affect what you see here. But you see the visual representation, and the key is down here, and then your chart. We're looking at a count view, but you can also look at a percentage view. So you could see, the bulk of our time is spent doing basic searches and then advanced searches, and then, trailing down to these other actions that users are taking, search actions that users are taking. This one is results list actions. So what are they doing after they search? So you search and then you get your list of results. What do your users do now? Do they facet? Do they remove the facet? Do they expand? Do they select, records? Do they click to the next page? And again, there are many more actions that aren't represented here because this is a training environment. So we just don't have like super interesting or robust data to show, unfortunately. But you can kind of get an idea then of what your users are doing. Document level actions. So what are they actually doing at the resource level? Again, saving it to the shelf, using your record actions. So like using citation, the easy bib, or maybe you have like Mendeley or something like that configured, getting the permalink. So maybe this will help you inform if you were looking to maybe pare down your record actions, like what's actually being used. And you could use like percentage, to see, and you can see over time the trends, is it useful? Are people using RefWorks? That sort of thing. You can do that kind of reporting. And then again, you get this bar graph, which, these like, they're so small. I don't know that visually it's super useful, but you can definitely see that display full record, across the board pretty much in this environment is what people are doing when they get to the record. You also have general actions reported here. So signing in, signing out, requesting things, saving things to their shelf, going into their e-shelf, are people using that functionality? The main menu links, 1, 2, 3, 4, however many you have, are the links that run across the top bar. So are those being used? And how many times are they being used? You can see that all that kind of thing. And then exploration actions, this is a relatively new um, table or graph, and it shows. Let me see, what does it show? It shows actions taken by end users related to citations, the resource recommender, if you have that set up. And it also shows activity in BX, Leganto, collection discovery, etc. Some of the things that we looked at before, like resource recommender and collection discovery, if you have those set up, you can browse how users are using that here. I don't have a lot of that set up in this particular environment, so we're seeing mostly like um, we're seeing mostly citation trail here, but and maybe if you don't have any of those things set up, you'll see no data, and that's fine. If you don't have those things, it's not an error to see no data. That just means there's nothing in any of the tables that this particular report is querying. And then you have devices is your second tab. I see some questions. So there's a question, can you pop out a section of the dashboard to see it bigger and in more detail? You can definitely take a look at the report, and we'll take a look at how the dashboard is made in a little bit. And then there's a question like, what does main menu link 7 mean? That's the order that they appear in. And I believe that the reason they appear like that is because you can have your own custom links. So if you had a link that linked out to like your library page or something, Primo doesn't necessarily know what to call it. So it's just labeling them in order. Um, right, so I don't think that you can customize that. Okay, so looking at our devices, so again, this is bad data, and you're going to probably have much more interesting data to look at. But we can see that this is probably basically all me and my own team uh, accessing this Primo area with our laptop, with Windows operating system in Chrome. And these are the number of actions and sessions we've had, and then actions per session. So like, you can kind of extrapolate like how long are people spending in their session, like kind of what are they doing. And then again, you should be able to, and this reporting is bad again because this is not a super used environment, but you can see trends over time. And then you can see, again, these pie charts are terrible examples, but you can sort of see what they're meant to show. And likely, you'll see iPhones and other devices accessing your library catalog in most cases, I would imagine. You can also look at facets, which I think is really interesting. Again, super simple here, but you can see how often facets are being used. And maybe you also compare that to like your sessions or your actions, how often are people, extrapolating how often are people using facets when they're in their searches. And then what facets they're using. And I think you have some, yeah, so you can look at sessions also. And then you can have count or percentage here as well. So you can take a look at, are they using, let's just switch to it and see. So, the resource type over half the time is the facet that's being used here. Um, and, I've heard anecdotally that, facets aren't necessarily used as much as you might think. So it's interesting data to look at. And I know that at least in some cases, folks have trimmed down their facets to very few or none at all because they find that that's just not how end users are filtering their results. They're using other, search terms, other ways to filter their results. You also have sessions here. So, we're coming all from the US. This is a US-based training environment, but likely you'd see other locations here in your reporting. You can also take a look at session duration, the average duration of the session, the number of actions taken in the session, and the number of signed users, the number of users who've signed in within a session. So you can look at reporting for that. And then again, you have the visual representation, and then you can switch again to percentage. You can also look at popular searches here. So like again, the data, but you can switch by month. You can have a monthly sort of view of what people are searching for. I would say, useful for right in this very moment, like likely you're going to have a lot of searches maybe for like COVID or CDC maybe, or whatever the health and the health entity in your area or region or state or country might be. Or maybe like, is the library open or whatever, you can see the string. And if you were interested in using something like Resource Recommender that requires you to decide what strings are going to pull up the Resource Recommender, so if you wanted to like link out to the CDC or your own local response to COVID or something like that, you could see like how are our users actually searching? Are they just searching for COVID, whatever? You can take a look at that. And then you have your number of searches, the number of results that are returned, and then the number of signed in users. You also have 0 search results. So I'm going to go back to January because there's more. But you see the view that they're searching in, what did they search, what did the index were they searching in, the scope that they used. So was it central index, whatever. The search scope type, is it local? Is it, this would be like the CDI here. And are they signed in users or not? And some of this maybe makes perfect sense. Maybe you have a like EBSCO API search, and signed in users who are not signed in are not able to get any results. Well, that's expected behavior, but maybe there's some other, scenarios where it might indicate an issue or something like that. So you can take a look at that. And then these final two actually will return no results here because these are specific to Primo Classic and they still show up here. So they're just not relevant. So no data is returned for those. So that's kind of the structure there. But let's say that I was looking at this Actions tab, and I was scrolling through and I was like, wow, these are really useful, but I want to make some changes to make this more useful for my environment. I want to report on some specific things, but I'll use this as, my baseline, because obviously this is sort of built out already. What you can do is I'm going to browse to the catalog, and I'll go into my Primo folder, which is where we found the out-of-the-box dashboards. I can expand this, and now I see my example dashboard that we looked at before, and also the trends dashboard. So I'll just open this one. So anything that we're doing in the, actually, I don't want to do that. Excuse me. I'm going to go back to the catalog area, but anything we're doing in this Primo out of the box folder, I can't save anything or edit anything here because we want to preserve these reports. We don't want to edit the out of the box reports. We want to keep them as examples, and then you can build off of them either in your institution folder or you can bring it into your own folder and do your editing there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and copy. So this is also what I would do if I was borrowing something from the community folder. I would come into more and copy, and then I'm going to put it in my folders because there is no institution folder, sadly, in this environment. But you could decide if you wanted to work on it, in your own area first, or if you're going to immediately bring it to your institution folder where others can see it as well and work on it there. Really depends on, what status quo is at your institution. And then I use this button up here. It's paste. I always find it weird that Oracle Analytics, like all of these are gray until you hover over them. It makes it seem like you can't use them, but you can. And when you hover over it, it turns blue and you can use it. So, I mean, these ones are truly grayed out, but I just find it like a weird display. But so I pasted it here. And so now I have a copy of my dashboard in my folder area. So that means that I can edit it. So I can do whatever I want with it, take a look at, what's powering the dashboard, what's powering the reports, and make changes to it. So I'm going to click on edit. And when you edit a dashboard, it brings you to like the back end view of it, I guess is how I think of it. So you see as I hover my mouse over, I see there's one column and then there's multiple sections in here. And inside of the sections, there's like the selector, which is like the prompt that I selected for like actions and sessions. And then here are my reports. So here's my actual action usage, my report. And you see that the icons kind of change. And as I hover down, it will change like highlight I don't know, the box or whatever that's being used. So you can move things around. So it's really just like a whoops, I didn't mean to do that. It's really like a drag and drop situation. So if you want this report to be first, you can move that one first and you maybe move this one up. And wherever the blue bar is where your thing is going to go. So if I move it up here, now I'm putting it in between that, now I'm putting it in between that, etc. So it's just kind of visually allowing you to move things around. And so you can, add reports. So you see that you have your catalog browse here. So maybe you created your own report and you want to add it to this dashboard to be displayed with the other areas of the action tab. You can do that. You can drag and drop it in here wherever you need to put it in. And if you've made any changes, you could always click on this preview up here and it will bring up pop-up, and it will show you what it looks like now. Before you save it or do any changes to it, you could say, does this look sane? Does this look good? And you can kind of move things around that way. So for example, I'll just do something really simple. If I wanted to add text up here, so I can pull the text option from the dashboard objects, pull it where I want to put it. I'm going to put it up top here. And then you see that I have created a new section and I have the text box. So I can click on this to actually enter text into it. And you can use like markup and HTML, whatever, to make it look like pretty, to format it in some nice way. You have like a few editing tools here, but not very many. So if you wanted to use that, it might be useful. And then I can preview it. And so my sample text has appeared all the way at the top, sort of in its own section, which is what we see when we look at the sort of structure. It's in its own section that contains the text. And then you can, drag and drop them around as you want to sort of make that more useful. But that's kind of the back end of the dashboard. And if you're creating your own, you would also be pulling in elements to configure visually how it's going to look. But if we wanted to, for example, make changes to the actual report, like the action usage searches example, so this is an actual report with the graph in it, maybe we want to make some changes of our own to this, change the criteria that's being pulled in. We can go over here to this XYZ, and you can actually go into edit analysis. You see you have other options. You could change how the results are displayed. You could link to it instead of having it embedded, etc. But I'm going to go to edit analysis. And Primo or Oracle Analytics is going to be like, you didn't save this. Do you want to save what you did before you leave? Because this is going to pull me out into the report area. I was just messing around, so I'm going to say, I'll just leave. I don't need to save it. But you would want to save it if you'd made any changes, otherwise you would lose that. So now that I have come here, now I'm actually in this report. So I'm in the action usage searches example report that's in the dashboard. So you see that, this is the search actions that we looked at before and the table that's creating, pulling in the information. So it brings you automatically into the results tab. And this is true of other, like, all my analytics as well. It pulls you always into the results tabs. You can see what's actually being pulled in by default. And we see also we have our subject areas. So we're using the Primo action usage subject area, and I can browse and see what options I have. So, you can browse through and see what you might want to add to your report. But you see the subject area that has been used to create this particular graph and report. But let's say I want to change, the criteria of this. I want to change how this is actually structured. You could click on this criteria tab. And then this is how the report is actually made. So it's bringing in dates, and I think there's a filter on it. So you can see the filter down here. It's bringing in the action and the action types, and it's bringing in a count. So this ruler, anytime you see the ruler, it's doing a count. And it's doing a total actions per action, which is a funny way of putting it. But these two are the measures that are being used here. And this is the one that kind of looks like a chart is like static data. So it's bringing in month and it's bringing in what type of action is being used. And then we're counting them. But let's say I wanted to put something else in here, or I wanted to adjust the way that this was acting. So let's just look down the Primo action here. So like, let's say I want to add on campus here. I can just drag and drop that and add additional counts here. So, maybe you want to, let's see what else we have in here. I guess I'm thinking of a different subject area that's like by view. You can add those pieces in, and you can also move them around. So like I can move this in here. And again, it like shows you the gray bar before you drop it down. So now it's going between these two. Now it's moving all the way to the end. So it kind of gives you a visual representation of where it's going to drop. Also, let's say we want to like filter actions. We only want to look at one action at a time. You can click into the gear here, and if you wanted to go into filter, when you go into the drop down, it's actually going to show you, the actions that are available. So like maybe you only want to look at like, I don't know, browse related records, you could select that, or you could select multiple to really pare down your report to show you something very specific. And obviously, there's a lot that you could then do with that. There's a lot you can do with like converting. You can convert your filters to SQL to do something, sort of more advanced rather than what's out of the box in terms of, dropping the drop downs around. Really, there's a lot to do that really I don't have enough time to sort of go through or enough knowledge, in which case I would definitely recommend going to the analytics classes if you are interested in going further. Um, Really, there's a lot that you can do. But let's say that you are done, making your changes. You can always go to the results tab to see how things have changed. Making sure that, you're getting what you expect. So you can make sure that you're getting what you expect in your results. Then you can save it. So if it's a out of the box report, you'll need to save it into a place where you have privileges to save. So I would need to add it again to my folder or save it in the institution folder in order to actually use it. So that's how you could sort of make adjustments to something that's out of the box. Um, let's see what else we can show. So if you wanted to create a analysis that is completely new, so you don't want to use anything that's already been created, you want to start from scratch, you would go to create up here. And then, are you creating a report like we were doing here? And we have the chart and the table here. Or you want to create a dashboard, a filter, a prompt. In this case, we'll start with a report. So we're just creating the sort of criteria and getting the results for our query. And it will ask you to select a subject area. So do you want to look at action usage, device usage? We've sort of seen the ways you can kind of imagine the different ways or the different data that is contained in each subject area. There are ways to combine subject areas. Some more advanced topic. There's definitely documentation on it and other videos on how you do that. You can also use the criteria of one report as a filter in another report. That's another way to do it. But in any case, if you're just going with one subject area, like let's say we just want to report on some action usage, nothing to do, we have our folders that we can pull from right here. So again, it's showing us the folders that we can use. We're in the criteria area because there's nothing to show in the results yet. And we've not built anything. So we haven't selected any columns or filters at this point. So really we're starting from scratch. So let's say that we want to report on the count of actions. Let's see. And we'll add month by date in here and put it over here. And then I think I can report by view in here. Maybe not. Let me look at the first one again. Oh, I can. Okay. So maybe you have multiple views in your institution and you want to do some reporting like per view, actions per view. So you can pull in your criteria, and as soon as you start putting columns in here, you can go into the results and you'll see that it's already pulling in, here are my month by date, here's my view, and then here's the actions taken. So I already have a table that's being built, and you see that it's just built based like on the way that I've pulled in my criteria. And you can see again that the actions is the count, and these are static pieces of data that are being pulled in, these sort of graphical representation ones. But let's say, there's only two views that I see in the results, but let's say that we want to add a filter. and we want to filter the view to just one of our views. So this is dynamically populated. So I'm just going to choose the one that has more results. You could also filter, maybe you want to look at specific months. Maybe there was some unusual activity or, I don't know, something like that. You can add filters in here to filter your report. And then immediately, as soon as you go into the results, now we're not seeing that other view. We're only seeing this one view for which we've created the filter. So you can kind of see how you can, use those filters and things like that to pare it down. So let's say that now I have this table, but I also want to add a chart like we saw in the other reports, the out of the box reports. I can go up here to this I don't know, this chart sort of icon and go to the drop down. And you can always choose best visualization if you want Oracle Analytics to sort of make sense of your data. What does it think is the best graphical representation? And it's a line graph or a bar graph rather. And so it's showing me, my graphical representation here. It puts it at the bottom, but you can drag it up so that it sits next to your report. And I have a very small screen on my laptop, so it's kind of, I'm scrolling around here, but you might have a better view. You can also move these around to try and make this easier to sort of see. But here's your graphical representation. Of course, there are many more that you can choose from, like, gauge. You can kind of poke around and see what might be a useful way to display whatever you've decided to put here. But let's say that I've done, this is what I want to report on. This is useful to me. I can save it. And when I save it, so I'm going to save it in my folders here, and I'll just call it example analysis. And once I save it, it will give it a title as well. And then I could use this, potentially I could use this report as input in a dashboard. So if I wanted to build my own dashboard like we saw, I could drag and drop this from my folder into that sort of frame area and arrange that how I want to, and I could add this into an out of the box one that I've saved somewhere and continue to report on things that are useful to my institution. So sort of just a really quick introduction to what you can do. And now we'll talk about how you can bring these things bring them into Alma so that you can, share them with people so that you can show them in different areas of Alma and make them just more useful to use rather than, sticking around just in analytics. So we're going to go back into Alma. So I should mention too, I mean, you can have analytics up. It's in a separate tab. It's a different, it's a different thing. Your login to analytics is dependent on your login to Alma. So if you time out of Alma, you're going to time out of analytics. So you'll just need to re-log in. And sometimes I think it's useful to just if you're doing a long sort of report in analytics, every once in a while, just go to Alma and search for something to keep your session alive so you don't get logged out. But in terms of sharing reports, let's see, do I have a slide to show? No. So I'm going to go back into my analytics area and I'm going to go to the analytics objects list. So this is what will allow me to bring those reports and dashboards into Alma. And I can add a new analytics object, and obviously you'd be adding a new Primo analytics object. I'm going to click on Alma right now just because of the institutional folder issue, but the format, the setup is the same no matter which, if you're using Primo or Alma. But you'll give your object a title. I'll do a report. And then you actually are browsing the folder structure in analytics. So if you still have it open, it can be useful to go back into the catalog and you can look at, the file browse structure over here if you're not sure. But, so this is the out of the box Alma folder. Generally speaking, your institution folders, if you saved your own unique report, is going to be all the way at the bottom. And so this one is network member 1. That's what this institution is called. And then you would see all of the folder structure for your institution that you had created. So it should dynamically it's being pulled dynamically from analytics, pulling in the folder structure. But you could also choose an out-of-the-box type analytic folder here as well. And then once you've chosen your folder, this is going to be populated with the names of the reports that are actually in there. And again, these are all my analytics reports just because of the issue with this specific environment, but you would see the names of your Primo reports or dashboards that you're trying to bring in. And then you would need to select the type. So this would be a report. So we have dashboard and report. And then we also have scheduled dashboard and scheduled report. You could also bring it in as a widget if you wanted to show it on the top the front page of your Alma. Well, let's say I wanted to do a scheduled report. If I select scheduled report, then I'm choosing my format and I'm choosing my if my job is active or not, and then how often am I sending this? Every Monday, every day. You know, you have some options here. How often do I want to send it? And then you add roles for the users that can subscribe to it. So, you know, maybe this report is only useful for like your ac administrator. You know, maybe you're choosing multiple roles there. And then I can save it. Oops. Okay, go away. So I'm just choosing things at random and it doesn't like that. But let me just let's look at this one, for example. See if I can change it to a scheduled. Okay. Let's give it a schedule and save it. And now I can subscribe. So if I click on this, it's subscribing for me. I can also manage subscription and I can choose, it will open. I can add a row here and choose the browse for my Alma user. And I believe that you can just enter an email as well. So if you had somebody who wasn't in Alma, but also needed to get this report, you can have their email added as well without, you know, being part of the sort of Alma ecosystem. And if you've scheduled it, then it would schedule and it would run and it would send it to those people at the scheduled time after the job runs. And you can check in your admin area, in your monitor jobs area. You should have scheduled a bunch of analytics jobs that check for your different reports at different intervals, and the jobs are the thing that will actually send out. So daily, weekly, it's checking to see, you know, if you've had something scheduled weekly, it's going to check and send that out. So you can check your jobs and make sure they're running. And that is sort of it for the demo. And let me just show the conclusion slides and I can take a quick look at the chat. So again, always premium services if you want one-on-one help from a consultant here for any projects that you might have. And that's it. And I will make sure that this slideshow and the recording and the chat from this and from last week are posted as soon as possible. But let me just stop sharing for a second so that I can browse at the chat. Okay, let's see. So the most recent question is there anywhere we can get advice on how to use the Primo reports strategically or for product management? I would say maybe that's a question for the listserv if you're part of the Primo L listserv. Um, I know that people have created some pretty robust reporting, so you might ask what your fellow institutions are using them for. There's a question, when do you use the criteria that looks like the stairs steps icon in analytics? Any example? I think, let me share again. I think you're referring to, get out of this. Let me go back into analytics. There is, let's see. I want to edit this, not view it. There's a hierarchy example. Let me go into the edit and see if there's one in this subject area. think it might be one of the last ones, like institutions. Ah, right. So this is like the hierarchy. Let me just see what happens when I put it in here. I think this creates like it creates this like hierarchical structure. You might see it like if you want to do some reporting, the way I've seen it more often is like if you're doing something in Alma, for example, and you want to report on something by like LC call number, you could drag the LC call number into your reporting and then it will give you like the hierarchy of it. And then you can kind of drill down that way. I don't know that this is super useful here, but you see that that's how the structure is. If you pull it in, it's giving you this hierarchy, and then you can click through the structure. And I don't know. To be honest, I don't know exactly what this particular hierarchy is doing in this case. Um, but there is good documentation on each subject area also if you want to know more about like what's in the Primo action usage. You can find that also in the CKC. Um, So Milan is answering some questions in the chat. Let's see. There's a question. If you choose Design Analytics versus Design Analytics Primo, do you see everything at once or are you taken to a choice of Alma or Primo? You're taken to one or the other. If you go into Design Analytics, you go into Alma Analytics and you won't see any of the Primo subject areas in there. There's a question, how can you join the Primo listserv? Oh, sorry. Yeah, Milan already answered that question. Let me try and find the Primo listserv sign up. It is very useful. It's run by the Eluna, I believe. Here we go. And you can also subscribe or you can search the archive, which is super useful because so you can join the Eluna, the mailing list there. You can also join Alma, Alma L, and I think there's other products there as well. Um, but the archive is really useful because you can search what people have, emails that they've submitted to the listserv before, and often there's really great use cases and really great solutions that people have. Let's see. There's a question. I get a 404 error when selecting create report. I tried logging out of analytics and logging back in, but it happened again. Um, I would submit a ticket for that. If you're able to log in to, sometimes I have an issue where I'm not able to log in. Maybe some of you have experienced this too, where you go into Design Analytics, either Alma or Primo, and you come to a login page, like an Oracle login page. If you get that, signing out of Alma and back in again usually fixes it. I get that sometimes if I've been in and out of analytics like multiple times in one session. Sometimes I'll get that. I don't know if it's like my Oracle user times out or something. But usually signing out and signing back in fixes it. So I'm not sure about the 404. That sounds like maybe support or development needs to look at your user. Let's see. There's a question. I get how this system would provide analytics for actions done within the Primo V interface, but what about searches that start off via custom search boxes that we've embedded in our homepage? If we have, for example, a search box that already limits resource types to books, does that mean that the analytics report will count those actions where the facet of resource type was selected? No, I don't think it does. There's a separate action for pre like it's I forget what it's called. It's like pre-sorted search or something like that. The facet usage is actually when you're in your Primo page and you specifically click on the facet, either adding a facet or removing a facet. Let's see if there's any more recent questions. There's a question, did I miss information on data visualization? You did not. I did not cover it in this session. I would recommend looking at Connie Braun's presentation, her masterclass. She goes through data visualization in Alma Analytics, which you could then apply to Primo. And yeah, that will give you much more information also on creating very, granular reports as well. Um, there's a question, what is premium services? Does everyone have access to it, or is it is something we need to purchase? Um, what is the address? I'm going to put the address in here. But premium services is a paid engagement, but sometimes as part of your implementation into Alma, sometimes your institution will purchase hours like preemptively. So sometimes you have those already, but you can choose personalized training if you want to implement something like you don't have acquisitions implemented or something like that. You can have a one-on-one trainer who will go through like a project basically and help you do that. Or you can go through an optimize service where we holistically look at all of your workflows and then give you advice on how to make them more useful. So those are kind of the different options. There is a question about where you can access Connie's classes. Um, maybe I'm just, let me make sure I'm chatting to everybody. Um, you can find her courses in that link. It might be useful to filter to Alma because there's a lot of stuff in there, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of filters in there. But they kind of start at the end around, let's say, October 2020 is when her classes start. So you can sort of look at the analytics courses. And she does a lot of great stuff. Let's see. There's a question. I'm in the example dashboard now, and for the zero searches report, the data seems to be coming from Minnesota universities, not my own university, CUNY. That is problematic, and I would definitely report that in a case. And Milan has answered some questions. Ooh, somebody else said the same thing. They're seeing Minnesota Twin Cities. That's strange, bad news, and I am definitely going to bring that back after this session to see what's going on with that. But thanks for letting us know. That's not expected. Um, so it looks like I'll just wait a few more seconds. We have a few more minutes for any additional questions. Um, yeah, that's very weird about the Twin Cities. Oh, I see. So, the person who reported the 404, it looks like people are chiming in that maybe you're using the report function rather than the create analysis. I think that's what, yes. So if you go into new analysis, that's where I went, and I should not have used report and analysis interchangeably. That is my fault. But yes, if you wanted to create that sort of like chart in the graph, you would go into the analysis area. I'll wait one more second, see if there's any other questions. Okay, I'm not seeing any, and likely there's a few up towards the top that I didn't get to. And again, I'll put that in the chat doc and have that posted next week. And then we'll catch up with the chat doc and the PowerPoint slides for this week once my supervisor is here and she does that. She's able to access that piece. But anyway, I would like to thank you all again so much for coming to all of these sessions. I had fun. I hope you had fun too, as much fun as you can have at work. And thank you so much for all of your comments. It was fun. Um, so thank you, and then I'll post this recording next week. So thanks all.